Hi everybody and welcome to today's episode of MBKB Talks. Today we have the wonderful Hayley Bate with us, and she is actually the programme lead for the leadership and management courses we offer at MBKB. Now, she's passionate about coaching and empowering others to really unlock their full potential. Now, we're so excited to have you on the podcast, and it's lovely to have you here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Hayley. It's great to have you here with us today. We're excited to get into today's episode, which is Leadership Redefined, Unlocking Potential and Building Confidence. With such a rich career in leadership, coaching and people development, we can't wait to hear more about your journey. Can you tell a bit about how it led to your current role at MBKB?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my leadership and management journey quite early on at the age of 17. And from that sort of get-go, I knew that people and leadership was something that I really wanted to do and build my career around. So from there, I stepped up to start looking after 32 teams for their learning and development across the West Midlands. And I then moved into hospitality in the HR arena, looking after talent acquisition and HR business partnering. But for me, throughout every sort of role that I've had in every sector, that key focus has been around learning and development. And for me, apprenticeships, there's a real power in that learning on the job, in developing your skills and being able to apply that knowledge in real time. So that was what led me to come to MBKB initially as a tutor. And then I progressed to becoming the programme lead for Team Leader 3, Ops Manager 5 and Corporate Responsibility 4.
Smashing.
Amazing.
Yeah. Before we dive deeper, let's give our viewers a little overview of what they can expect in today's episode.
Today we'll be talking about Hayley's journey within leadership and how coaching has been a real crucial part of her role and how she's helped others to grow within her leadership role.
And we'll also explore how Hayley tackles difficult conversations and how she helps leaders set boundaries, especially in remote work environments.
And finally, we'll also dive into Hayley's personal philosophy around leadership and how she focuses on fostering sort of culture and growth within her team.
Hayley, you've worked in various sectors from retail to hospitality. How have those experiences shaped your leadership style?
So working across those different sectors, I've worked with some really diverse teams, different locations. And I think the great thing there is about that adaptability. So it's recognising where you've got a really strong and established team that maybe needs more clarity, more structure, versus when you've got a really new team that needs a more coaching or a mentoring approach. So it's being able to really use your leadership, adapt it, and that's situational leadership. And I think what goes along with that is really ripping up the rule book, forgetting everything you know about that industry and starting from ground zero, thinking about what can I learn, get curious about understanding different roles, different situations, and ultimately understanding their ideas for improvement, because that's usually where the best innovations come from.
Amazing, great stuff. Now, you've obviously spent over 10 years within leadership roles. What specific experience has made you wanted to take that leadership pathway?
So for me, I always think about that first leader that really believed in me, and I encourage everybody to do the same thing. So think about that first person that believed that you could do anything you put your mind to. For me, it was about how they made me feel. So they made me feel really empowered. They made me feel valued, that my contributions were bigger and they meant something, and recognised and rewarded for that as well. And that manager really pushed me to do things that I didn't even know I was capable of at the time, and saw a real potential in me. So I think about how that made me feel. And for me, that was when I thought, I want to make other people feel like that. I want to make teams feel like that. Mm-hmm. And it's bigger than just the job role or a job title. It's about how you make other people feel.
I think that's so fun.
100%, yeah. It really does make you think what managers that you've had in the past and present as well have really they're actually really good and made a change in your life. That's very true.
Pushed you to reach levels that you didn't think you could yourself. You didn't know that you could. No,
Definitely.
that's really good. What was your first ever leadership role like, and what lessons did you learn from it?
So my first ever leadership role was at 17, and it was an accidental leadership role. I applied for a job on a checkout, and when I got there, they gave me the job of a head cashier, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, what was expected of me, what the role entailed. I just about got to grips with working a till, and it was a little bit scary, to be honest. But I think for me, it's about being open and honest. It's not about having the answers to everything, and you don't need to, because you've got an amazing team of people around you that will support you. So don't necessarily have to know the answers, but you do need to know your people. Know those people that you can draw on for strengths. Know who's creative. Know who's worked there a long time and can give you that support and those established boundaries as well.
Now, when we're doing a bit of research, you actually mentioned that you love to embrace change. Now, how did that mindset help you in your career within a leadership role?
Change is a huge part of everything that we do. So as humans, that's how we grow, that's how we develop, it's how we learn. And changing your mindset about change is the biggest thing that you can do. So starting off with that really positive change mindset is around, what can I learn from this experience? What new skills can I develop? And actually change is what brought me to MBKB, recognising, one, that it was time to do something a little bit more in that arena, but also recognising that it's an opportunity to develop myself. So I would always say embrace change, because that's what makes us who we are and helps us to develop.
Definitely, I think I definitely agree with that. I think I wouldn't be here today if I didn't embrace change, so I must say I definitely agree with that one.
Same, yeah.
Definitely. Also, you've obviously been in a leadership career for over a decade. Now, what's the most rewarding part of being a leader, and what keeps you passionate about coaching others?
I think for me, the most rewarding part is watching somebody grow and develop and take on a challenge that they absolutely didn't think they could do, but then they go out and smash it, and they come back and they tell you about all the amazing things that they've done. And for me, it's about that building that confidence, but it's not only that one person, it's that ripple effect. So every time you're coaching somebody and you coach them into a different role, they take those skills with them and bring that to their next team. And you know that you're safeguarding more and more teams in a business by developing that creative style and building that coaching culture.
Yeah, it's really quite good actually, because you're affecting one person's how they see things, and then they're also going to change another 30 people's minds, and then that 30 people can then, it's like a bit of a ripple effect, like you say. It's quite, it's really
nice.
quite interesting. Yeah, I like that one.
What's the biggest challenge you faced in leadership, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge in leadership for me personally is celebrating wins. I'm not great at celebrating the wins. It's something that I have to work on. So whenever something would come along, I'd sort of downplay it or think, oh, I got lucky that time. That went really well. And for me, I stole this from one of my great managers, was to create an inventory of awesome. And I would recommend everybody to do this. So whether this is a physical notebook, whether it's a digital one, a folder in your emails, and put all of your wins in there. Every time you get a great piece of feedback, every time you do something you didn't think you could do, and start to celebrate those wins, because reward and recognition often comes from us shouting about the things we do, but it's not always reward and recognition, it's that innovation as well, and that collaboration. By sharing one great thing that we've done, 10 other people could learn from that and build on it and create even more.
That's lovely.
Yeah, that's really quite interesting. Now, as a leader, what do you think is the key to obviously developing trust and also strong connections with your team as well?
I think trust for me comes down to integrity. So it's doing what you say you're going to do. People want to believe in leaders who show up, who are real, who are honest, but also the ones that do what they say they're going to do and when they say they're going to do it. So for me, it's about being really, really strict. Don't overcommit yourself. Don't make promises and plans that you know that you can't stick to, because you're going to be letting people down and damaging that trust. But also be really, really honest. If you're delayed, if there's a hold up, talk to your team, let them know what's going on.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Definitely something. Yeah, I think that's something I could definitely take a leaf out of that book there. Sometimes I can maybe take on a bit too much at times potentially, but yeah, it's all about managing people's expectations and obviously, just like you say, letting them know if something is getting in the way. It's definitely a good little takeaway.
You've mentioned before that confidence building is a big part of your leadership approach. How do you help others to develop that confidence in their own leadership abilities?
So I think one of the biggest things when we build confidence is understanding your strengths and then playing that back in a way that it links to your leadership abilities. So whether that is you're a great organiser or your time management is absolutely amazing, how do you elevate that as a leader? How do you share that as a leader and develop others around you as well? So I would say always start with somebody's strengths and start working back in terms of how that relates to leadership. And then I think the second part of that as well is having that safe space to make mistakes. We learn from mistakes. We learn from having that safe environment that when something didn't quite go to plan, we can evaluate it, we can reflect on it, we can go again and improve. But if we don't have that safe space and that safe culture to make those mistakes, that's where the confidence starts to drain, and it's quite severely damaged by that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Definitely, yeah.
Coaching is a huge part of your role. What's the most rewarding part of coaching others into leadership positions?
I think the most rewarding part of coaching is that coaching is all about helping somebody with the right questions, with the right skills, to find the answer for themselves. It's not about telling them what to do or telling them about what you've done in the past. And the great part about that is that they start to realise that they know far more than they ever did, and they have far more skills than they ever anticipated, and then being able to go and use that in the workplace and see differences, see a measurable result. The great thing about coaching is that flexibility, that you can try numerous things. It doesn't have to be just one to get to your end goal. There's no pressure if whatever you've tried hasn't worked.
It's really about like unlocking their potential and coaching them through that, and like allowing them to realise that actually yes, they can do these things, and that's really, really
100%,
good.
yeah, I think I agree. Now, what strategies do you use as sort of a leader to help your sort of colleagues or anybody that you're working with to sort of push past imposter syndrome and stuff like that?
So I think imposter syndrome is a really, really interesting one, because statistics show around 70 to 80% of people actually experience imposter syndrome. So it isn't necessarily one group of people, it isn't just leaders who experience it, but also it spans organisations. So I think the first thing to remember with imposter syndrome is, why is it happening? So very often it could be, we've got to do something for the first time. We've stepped into a new role. Well, actually, that's pushing you outside of your comfort zone. So why are you learning? Is that imposter syndrome because you're learning? Is it because you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to be perfect from day dot? And that's never a great strategy to have. So when I think about when I came to MBKB and I first watched, it's an amazing tutor called Chris, I first watched his teaching and learning session as part of my induction, doing an observation. And I thought, wow, he's amazing. I wish I was Chris. I want to be Chris. And then I developed a little bit of imposter syndrome. And actually I sat back and I thought, do I need to be Chris? Could I not just be me? And could I not learn from him instead? So I think it's about, how can we reframe something to recognise that we're learning, but also how do we take that pressure off ourselves that we're not going to be perfect at everything?
Yeah, for sure. I think like we all do that. I mean, I definitely do that in most things where I'm like, okay, well, this needs to be perfect. And even in this, you know, we'll make mistakes and say the wrong thing, but
Definitely.
it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be me. So
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
I agree, 100%.
You've coached many aspiring leaders. What's one key piece of advice you always give them when it comes to leadership growth?
When it comes to leadership, the piece of advice I always give everybody is that growth comes from reflection and not perfection. And when we think about reflection, that needs to be structured. So as humans, when it comes to reflection, we tend to critique more than reflect. So we want to say, what didn't go well? Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why? What we're not thinking about is what comes after that and what came before it as well. So are we reflecting on the situation that we were in and using that as context? Are we reflecting on our actions, other people's actions, how they were perceived, or maybe even things like our body language and our tone of voice in that time as well? But also putting that plan in place that says, next time this happens, this is how I'm going to be better. So putting that focus into reflection and building that time in our diary, because very often our diaries get so full and so busy that at the end of the day we think, all I want to do is switch off. I just want to get home, I want to sit on the sofa, I want to relax and watch some TV. But actually, if I reflect on my day, will that stop me making the same mistakes tomorrow?
Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's definitely a good, great advice, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. Because reflecting on everything that you've done, especially, and then you can go, okay, that didn't work, we'll try this. And it's just having that moment of, being aware that something's gone wrong, but you can always fix it. I think that's brilliant.
Definitely. Now, how do you create a safe environment for your coaches to embrace sort of vulnerability and growth as well?
So one of the key sort of concepts in coaching, and it's something on our coaching program that we start right at the basics, and we talk about unconditional positive regard. And that's always about holding your coaching in the most positive way. So that's leave judgment at the door. Judgment doesn't have a place in a coaching session. It's never about that. Creating that safe space is about having those really open and honest conversations. It's about knowing how to structure your questions, maybe how to push somebody a little bit more. But actually, if somebody said, I'm not ready to talk about that yet, that's fine, we can move on. So there's no pressure in that environment either.
Yeah, that's great.
Leadership is about helping others grow. How do you make sure that your leadership style evolves around your team?
I think for me, evolving that leadership comes down to feedback. And I am one of the people that's always taking on board as much feedback as I can get. whether that's feedback on my style, whether that's feedback on emails, tones, the things that I create, how many messages I put out on our Slack channel, all of that's really important to me. But I think within that as well, it's taking the time to really look at that feedback and look at yourself within that as well. So rather than jump into an assumption that automatically I understand what that feedback's telling me, actually let's think about that a little bit further. Do I need to go back to that person and maybe ask a few questions to understand that feedback a little bit better? And then moving from there, thinking about how we implement that as well. So what changes are we going to make? When are we going to make them? And that feedback, it isn't just that singular loop. So we wouldn't just do that feedback once and then move on. It's getting feedback on, has that improved now? Could there be more? Could that be better? And that's how I keep that approach evolving with my team.
So it's like having check-ins to just make sure you've had a little bit of feedback and then check, is this still what you wanted? And then, okay, can we do more? Can I change this? And that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we think about feedback, we often play that game. Have you heard of Bring Me a Rock? Have you heard of that?
No.
So we often play this game of give me some feedback. So in terms of this game, it's Bring Me a Rock. So somebody gives you some feedback and you go, actually, I wanted a red rock. Okay, so I'll go away and I'll bring you that. Okay, so now I want a circle rock that's red. So they go and do that. Actually, now I think I want a blue rock. And often with feedback, when we start to change the way that we want that and we start to ask for the impossible, we're never going to get the answers that we need to develop as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure we're checking back in on that specific feedback rather than moving on to that next point.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's quite a cool little concept. I
Yeah.
quite like the idea of that. That's cool.
Mm.
In your experience, what's the most important personal growth a leader can experience?
For me, I think it's about self-awareness. It's about knowing your strengths and your weaknesses and embracing that as well. Nobody's ever going to be perfect at everything. So it's understanding where are my weaknesses, where do I need to develop, what can I do to do that. When I think about my self-awareness, I know where my weaknesses are. So what I tend to do is surround myself by people who can help me with that, because it's sort of, for me, it's about peer-to-peer learning. So if I think about one of my weaknesses, it's probably around AI, and that's something I've been working on really heavily. So I surround myself with people like TJ, who is the Programme Lead for Learning and Development, people like yourself, Jacob, who can get me involved in things like Otter and Hour One, and start to think about how can we bring a little bit more gamification and a bit more AI into it. So for me, it's about start with the strengths and the weaknesses, build your action plan around those weaknesses, but also think about who are the best people that I can go and ask, because it's not all about going to do a piece of a knowledge course, for example. It's more when we think of apprenticeships, it's all about learning, but how do we put it into practice? And that's exactly what I do with that peer-to-peer learning.
Yeah, it's like surrounding yourself with people that are experts in those things, and then that makes you better and helps. And also, it's not about you being an expert in everything.
Yeah.
And that's really important as well.
100%. I think connecting with people who know that specific topic you're trying to learn is very important to do, just to get those conversations in and to get talk to them and yeah, just trying to learn. Yeah, just learn. Yeah, yeah, I agree, 100%.
How do you encourage others to continuously grow and step outside their comfort zones as leaders?
I think one of the biggest things is scheduling time for your development, because very often we are sucked into the day-to-day and our diaries become filled with meetings, and even if we do build in that reflection time, which is great if we can, we need to think about our own CPD. So is that webinars? Is that peer-to-peer sessions? What does that look like? Is that an apprenticeship? And for me, it's about blocking out that time, making sure you've got some dedicated time every single month, making sure you keep a log of your CPD, because it's really easy to do all of these amazing events, but actually if we're not spending our time filling out CPD log, we're not reflecting on that, we're not thinking then about how can I use this learning, how can I apply this learning in the workplace.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. Yeah, locking out that CPD time is definitely, because sometimes other tasks come in front of it, and then that ends up getting pushed to the side, and sometimes you might end up not even doing that sort of activity that you said you were going to do. So yeah, definitely just locking in that time and getting it done. Yeah,
and getting suggestions from others as well. So when you reach out to colleagues, what sort of things do they do for their CPD? And you know, at MBKB, I think we're really lucky that we've got such an open culture that people will share different webinars that you can go on, different events that you can attend to start to work on that CPD. But who else could you ask within your business?
100%, yeah. Now, as a leader, how do you sort of maintain your own growth and develop while also focusing on the growth of your team as well?
So in terms of my growth, I do a lot of qualifications because I really enjoy that aspect of learning. I enjoy that balance between getting the knowledge and being able to apply it. And for me, that comes down to actively seeking those opportunities as well. But also, my line manager. So I'm really lucky that my line manager, Bev, is amazing. And I know that if I spoke to her and said, I want some support with these 3 things, what could I do? She's going to open up some doors within the business. She's going to tell me maybe who I need to go and speak to, what opportunities she's aware of, or even escalate that on my behalf to see what she can come back with. For me, again, it comes down to blocking out that time and knowing what you want to work on and being really specific within that as well.
Right stuff, yeah. Now, obviously, awkward and difficult conversations are all a part of being a leader. So how do you approach them and sort of tackle them head on, I suppose?
I think the first step is always that prep, because very often we think that that conversation is going to be much more difficult and much more awkward to have than it really is. So very often we might spend days or weeks worrying about that build up to that conversation. So thinking about the prep, thinking about what's fact and separating that from emotion, because when we think about the people that we work with, we have really, really close relationships with them. We get to know them as people, and actually that conversation is about fact. It's not about emotion, it's not about hearsay. So prepping that, thinking about intent. Why am I having this conversation? What's the intention? And actually, if the intention is that I want to help you improve and I want to help you improve your performance, why would we not have that conversation when we can have it? Why would we put that off? Why would that feel uncomfortable to us? So it's all about that prep in our intent and our approach.
Definitely, yeah. I think awkward conversations like spans across different areas as well. Like specifically within my role, I mean, having that awkward conversation can sometimes lead to better things. I mean, specifically as well with yourself, if you have that awkward sort of conversation with a team member who, I don't know, might not be progressing or might just need sort of some advice in some other areas, that awkward conversation could then excel them to do better. So it's all, like you say, it's super important to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And very often that's all it is. When you have that conversation and you lead with, how are you? How are you feeling? Rather than leading in with, this is what we need to discuss today. How are you? How are you feeling? I've noticed that your time logs are a little bit behind. Let's talk about that today. That does not feel threatening or confronting, because we're not starting that question with, why is your time log behind?
Yeah.
Why are you doing X, Y, and Z? Focusing on that behaviour. It's more about focusing on the fact. So your time log is X amount of hours behind. How could we improve that? What could we do? What could you do to do that? What's causing you to fall behind? What support do you need? So making sure we're using that right sort of questioning style, avoiding those why questions because they cause that defensive, confrontational style, and thinking more about the how and the what.
No, it's really good. It's really about wording it properly in order to get the best out of the person, as opposed to them feeling threatened in that moment that they've done something wrong. That's really good.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to a leader who struggles having difficult conversations but then know that they're necessary for growth?
I think one of the challenges with difficult conversations is the challenge between having the correct conversation and the comfortable conversation. Because everybody wants to sit in that nice comfortable zone, but they're never going to move out of that and they're never going to see anything change. So when we then start to move to that correct conversation, actually smaller correct conversations a lot earlier don't lead to the big awkward uncomfortable ones. So thinking about how we can have those shorter conversations at the start, thinking about how regularly we check in on somebody. So do we have a monthly or a weekly check-in with that person, or are we storing this up for their 12-month appraisal, and by the time it comes around they've completely forgotten about this incident? And again, it then becomes a little bit defensive. So thinking about making sure we're having regular conversations, we're having regular check-ins, making sure we're seeking to understand where are they coming from. Actually, is this a situation external to work that's impacting their performance? Is there something that's going on behind the scenes that I'm not aware of? Have we actually got a bigger issue in terms of collaboration between teams that's holding us up? So again, getting curious, getting in the detail, but understanding their side of it and bringing that empathy in as well.
Interesting. Yeah.
As you know, well-being is something we often discuss here at MBKB. How do you encourage leaders to set boundaries and protect their mental health, especially in remote roles?
So setting boundaries first comes back to that idea of capacity and being open and honest with what does your capacity look like. It's also about scheduling breaks in your diary and actually making sure that you take them, because it's really easy to just answer another email or do something else in that time, but making sure you're taking that break and getting away from the screen. There's also the concept of anchors as well, so making sure that we've got some designated space in our home, especially with remote work, this is where our office lives and this is where we shut the door and we walk away from it at night to set that boundary. But that concept of anchors is actually, what are those anchors for me that let me know that I've finished work? Is it when I turn my laptop off and I shut that for the day? Is it when I close my notebook? So one of the things I do every day at 4:30, I stop whatever I'm doing and I write tomorrow's to-do list. And that's my anchor to say, these are the things that I'm going after tomorrow, and now I know I can walk away from that thinking everything on there will be handled tomorrow, and I'm not going to be sat there at 6 o'clock at night thinking about all the things that I probably should have got done.
No, I think that's really good. Especially, I haven't heard having an anchor, but that's really, I'll definitely take that on board for sure and write that to-do list for the next day. I know when we had Katie on here, didn't we? And we discussed obviously similar, and she talked about having a commute. So if that's coming out of your house, walking around the block, and then coming back in and starting the work, and then doing the same, and then to finish the day. I was I really like that.
Yeah, it's like giving a bit of a break, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I like the anchor one as well. I quite like that. I think I might have to try that myself, doing a to-do list, because it always ends up me starting the next day with my calendar just full of tasks. Whereas if you just set out some solid tasks to complete maybe just writing them down, it just probably helps a little bit more. Just that's when you're finishing the day. I quite like that one.
Yeah, and I find the act of physically writing it. So it doesn't have to be a written list. It could be a to-do list that you keep on Google Keep or sits within your calendar. But for me, I like the physical act of writing, because that feels like, right, I've come to the end of the day, I'm going to shut the laptop screen, I'm going to write that list, and then I'll put everything down out of my head, and I can get into home space now.
That sounds good. It clears your mind of anything you're like, I need to do that tomorrow. Okay. Well, no, you're going to do it because it's there. You can see it.
Definitely. Now, looking ahead, what are some goals or milestones within your leadership career that you're sort of looking to achieve, really?
I think for me, I'm really, really passionate about women in leadership.
Okay.
Because I think very often as women we're told not to be boastful, not to know your worth, not to celebrate your value. Now there's a real difference between arrogance and celebrating your success and owning that success. So for me, one of the things I'd really like to do is to start thinking about developing some women in leadership programs. And it's really interesting that today I had a conversation with Chris, who's one of our BDEs, who said that one of our organisations that we work with, Equans, they're also looking at developing something similar. So I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth stuck into that.
That sounds brilliant, for sure.
Definitely, yeah. I did speak to Chris about that earlier myself as well, and it sounds great what they're looking at doing. I'm excited to see it unfold. Yeah, 100%.
If you could design your ideal leadership role, what would it look like?
Now, it's a really, really interesting question, because that was the question that brought me to MBKB. So I had a coaching session with my then director of, and she said to me, right, if you had a blank piece of paper, what would your job look like? What things are you really going after? So it's not necessarily about the job title or the money, what things are important to you. So the things that I put down was autonomy. So one of the things I was really looking for was that freedom and flexibility to be creative. And I think at MBKB we really celebrate that. Not only in the way that we design our courses, the way that tutors have that flexibility to manage their own calendars, their own diaries, but I think it really comes down to that course flexibility as well, and what we offer our learners when we think about our collaborative delivery programs. Learners can pick the modules that they want to do, and not many providers give them as much freedom as we do. So autonomy was a huge piece of that. The second piece of that puzzle was about being innovative, and at MBKB we don't stand still. We are always looking for something next, something bigger, something better, and how can we improve within that. And AI plays a part of that in terms of our strategy and how we can develop, but also things that we're looking at doing in terms of commercial courses and value-added modules for our learners as well. And the third thing that really sat within there was culture. Culture is hugely important to me. And I think for anybody who's been, in the workplace or has worked in leadership and management, they know how important culture is, because that's what sets the mood, that's what sets the weather, and that sets how you feel. So for me, I wanted to work in a really, really positive culture, and I'm really grateful that I have found that.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant.
That's amazing.
It goes back to our first episode with Mark. We were talking about the culture, and I think it's so important, the culture that MBKB has built, for sure, and that anybody can question anybody, from whichever level or whichever sector of the business they're in, and I think that's really important.
100%. It's really a key. It's a key part of MBKB. It's just so great, I suppose.
Yeah. If someone is just starting their leadership journey, what advice would you give them?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I would give them is just be kind to yourself. You're not going to know all the answers. You're not going to get everything right first time. And also don't take it too personally, because it's really easy when situations get out of control, when a conflict has maybe gotten out of control, and especially I had that background in customer service as my first role. It's remembering to not take things so personally, to maybe take a step back and take the emotion out of it, but also to be a little bit kinder to yourself, because leadership is a huge challenge and it's not an easy role in any way, shape or form.
No, for sure.
100%, yeah.
I think we should all learn to be kinder to ourselves, especially in work. But it's difficult, isn't it, when you're like, oh, you want everything to go perfect. Well, nothing's perfect.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be. And you don't need to have all the answers. I think that's really important.
100%, yeah. Now, obviously, looking back, what's your most valuable lesson you've learned as a leader? And if you could go back and tell your younger self something relatable to that, what would it be?
I would think that when I think back to starting my career at 17, being really, really nervous, having to talk to customers and having to say no a lot, was be okay with saying no, because generally we want to please everybody, and when we take our first role, being yes is a huge part of where we are. So we want to be able to do everything, and we want to do everything that everybody asks of us. But sometimes saying no leads to bigger and better things, because actually that's where that element of challenge comes in. So conflict, we often think of as quite a negative thing. Actually, conflict can be really positive, because when we start to say, no, I don't feel like that's the right way to go. No, I don't feel like that's the right position to be in for that person, for that individual. No, I think we could do this better. That's what really challenges us. And I think certainly through my career, I've started to see that a lot of organisations are starting to value that now, and value that conflict and that collaboration. And when I look at MBKB, I think we do that really well. So when we think about our meetings and our structure and the way that we send our messages out, we invite that challenge. We invite people to think a little bit differently.
And it's like allowing you to say, well, actually, no, that doesn't work. And then I think it's a learning experience for everyone involved then, and that's really brilliant.
Definitely, yeah, 100%.
Is there a question you wish we had asked you today?
I think the question for me would be, what makes me so excited about being a program lead? So as a program lead, you have a really, really unique opportunity, because not only do you still get to work with learners, so I have an amazing cohort of learners, but I also get to work with tutors. I get to build, I get to design, and I get to work with people who've been in this business an awful lot longer than me. I've got project management experts, I've got change management experts. And one of my tutors recently said this to me, and it's a quote that really sticks with me: whenever you roll the dice, you only ever see 3 sides, you only ever see 3 perspectives. So being a program leader, I get to see 12 perspectives with all of the tutors put together. So for me, it's about being able to build a program, but able to see the difference in that learner. So I was recently having a one-to-one with one of my learners, and we were talking about change management. And she said to me, I'm so glad I did this apprenticeship, because I went into a meeting with senior directors and I taught them through the change curve. And I taught them about where everybody's here at the start of this journey, and actually they've got their end goal in sight. They're already there. So it made them sort of sit back and think, because I was teaching them something that they'd probably never heard before, but it made them take a step back. It made them think about the business, about the culture, about individuals, and actually how we experience change, and made a really, really positive impact.
Yeah, that's really quite impressive actually. It's quite a nice little thought to think about that she took that into the meeting, and then it made an impact on the senior team from their company. Oh, that's really
and that's the great thing about leadership, is that anybody can be a leader.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in the leadership or a management role to be a leader, and leaders can be at any point in an organisation, but being able to go in and influence senior leadership in that way is amazing.
For sure.
Definitely, yeah. Now, what's the one thing you hope listeners take away from today's episode?
I think the one thing I would hope that they would take away is to go home, get a notebook, get a folder, and create that inventory of awesome. Because on your bad days, when you think that you need a little bit of a boost, maybe when your confidence is dwindling, you can hop right in that. I keep learner feedback, testimonials, every little bit of positive feedback in there. So I'd hope everyone would go and create that inventory of awesome. It's also a really good shortcut for when your appraiser comes around, because you've already got all of your wins nice and neatly stored, and it's just picking your favourites.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's then taking that time to go like to celebrate the little wins for yourself, even if you're the sort of person that can't do that or doesn't necessarily think, oh, was that a win? Write it down, and it will be. and you can just go back and reevaluate it.
100%. Yeah, I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
Might have to try that myself.
Hayley, when you're not working, what do you love to do to relax or recharge?
So recharging my batteries comes down to a lot of reading. So I'm a massive reader. I like pretty much everything that I can get my hands on. And it started at a really young age that my mum used to take me to the library when I was sort of like 3 and 4. And obviously it was only picture books then. But now I think I've read 77 books already this year. So I read a lot in my spare time. And that's a mixture of like autobiographies and histories and sci-fi and fantasy. And it's that little bit of escapism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Travelling to another world or another time. I've also got 3 lovely dogs, so I like to spend a lot of time, or as much time as I can, outside with them. Nice little walkies and getting some good weather because we're getting the sun shining.
We are.
100%. Yeah, I think the sun's coming out now, which is always nice after
Mm-hmm.
however long of cold, miserable weather. But just quickly, what was your number one book this year? If you could recommend a book to anybody that you've read this year, what would that book be?
So my number one book that I've read this year is called Turn the Ship Around.
Okay.
I would absolutely recommend that everybody reads that book. And it is about leadership, but it's also about how we can develop and empower a culture. So it focuses on the principle initially of having the idea of a leader and a follower.
Okay.
So when we think about leadership traditionally, you will have your leader and you will have your followers. And that premise is that around control. So we tell them what they should be doing, we tell them how to do it, and they follow us. And that just stifles innovation and creativity. So that book takes you on a little bit of a journey of how they changed and how they turned that ship around that was poorly performing by using the leader-to-leader approach. So actually, that's where that coaching comes to the fore, and how could we do this better? What could we do differently? And that's where you start to see the real impact that has on being a leader-to-leader, peer-to-peer relationship. So I would absolutely recommend everybody read that this year.
Sounds brilliant.
Definitely, I'll have to check that one out.
That's my list.
So, Hayley, we're now at the Empower Hour, and which is a special recurring section where we're going to focus on an empowering quote or fact that empowers you throughout your day. And yeah, it's really just designed to inspire all of the learners that are watching.
Yeah, and to inspire us as well. So could you share a moment, a quote, or a person that has truly empowered you in your journey so far?
Absolutely. So one of my favourite quotes is, and it came from a TED Talk, which was all about imposter syndrome actually. And it was really, really interesting because it talked about the concept of reframing. And the quote that was given in there was by an explorer, and he said, "I've never been lost, but I was once bewildered for 3 days." And I absolutely love that because I think that's reframing at its best. And I think there's a lot that we can learn in terms of how we reframe our success from that.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's quite a cool one. That is.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's really good. Hayley, a huge thank you for being here today. We've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you and learning about your leadership journey and how you shape everyone around you in your teams. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Definitely. And also, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. Your support honestly means the world to us all.
Make sure you follow us on TikTok, YouTube, all of the socials to keep up to date with any more episodes of MBKB Talks and all things MBKB.
And also, keep your eyes peeled on socials for our 5th episode, where we will be revealing shortly who will be the next guest.
As always, don't forget to like, comment, share, follow, subscribe, all of the things. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for any future episodes, so feel free to share. And thanks again,
Thanks
Hayley.
again, Hayley.
Thank you for having me.